You think you know Denver? The mile-high altitude, the Rocky Mountains scraping the western sky, the Broncos, the craft beer, the dispensaries. You know the postcard. But here's what the postcard leaves out. Denver and the state of Colorado, built around it, have been inventing food for a century and a half, sending creations out of the Front Range and into kitchens and restaurants and lunch counters across the entire country, and in some cases, across the world. You have eaten Denver's food without ever thinking about where it came from. You have ordered it in diners, craved it on road trips, argued about it with people from other states, and never once connected it back to the city at the edge of the Great Plains with the Rockies at its back. In today's video, we are counting down 10 foods that were invented in Denver and Colorado. And by the time we reach number 1, you will never eat that dish again without thinking about the gold rush town, the railroads, the miners, and the immigrants who put it on your plate. Stay with us all the way to the end, because number 1 might be the most debated food origin story in American history. And Denver has the granite monument to prove it. 10. Colorado-style mountain pie. Every major American city that takes itself seriously has a pizza style. New York has its thin, foldable, grease-dripping slices that require no fork and no apology. Chicago has its deep dish, which New Yorkers will tell you is not pizza but a casserole which Chicago ignores. Detroit has its square pan style. And Denver has the mountain pie, which is unlike any of them, and which most people outside Colorado have never eaten, and which, once eaten, is genuinely difficult to forget. The story of Colorado-style pizza begins not in Denver proper, but in Idaho Springs, the old Gold Rush mountain town about 40 miles west of the city up Interstate 70. In 1973, a Brooklyn-born, Minnesota-raised restaurateur named Chip Bear bought a 15-seat pizza shack from a couple named Bo and Joanne Falk. He kept their names, renaming the place Bo Joe's, elevated the ingredients, and invented something that had never existed before. The mountain pie is defined by its crust, which is made with honey rather than sugar, rolled by hand into a thick, substantial braid around the edges that stands up several inches from the plate like the ramparts of an edible fortress. The honey gives the dough a slight sweetness and a chewiness that regular pizza dough does not have. The toppings are piled high in quantities that would make a New York pizza maker genuinely uncomfortable. And when you finish the pizza, Denver tradition dictates that you dip the remaining crust in honey. Not optional, that is how you do it. Bo Joe's now has 7 locations, including a Denver outpost, and Colorado-style pizza has inspired a generation of Front Range pizzerias that understand the mountain pie as a category of its own rather than a variation on someone else's idea. It came out of the mountains, literally and spiritually, and it has never left. 9. Colorado Green. Chile. There's an argument to be made that no single flavor defines Denver dining more completely than green chile. Not green chile the ingredient, but green chile the preparation. A thick, intense, roasted pepper stew made primarily with pork that functions less like a condiment and more like a fundamental category of food that gets applied to everything. You smother your breakfast burrito in it. You put it on your cheeseburger. You drown your enchiladas in it. You eat it straight from a bowl with a tortilla on the side. And if you do not understand what smothered means in a Denver diner, the server will explain it to you with the patient but slightly concerned expression of someone who has encountered this confusion before and genuinely worries for your culinary education. Denver's green chile tradition arrived with Mexican and New Mexican immigrants who came to Colorado beginning in the 1920s, recruited for seasonal labor and staying for decades, building communities and neighborhoods across the city and in the suburbs of the Front Range. They brought their food traditions with them, and green chile took root in Denver soil with particular intensity. The Pueblo chile, grown in the southern Colorado city of Pueblo, developed its own distinctive character, distinct from the more widely known New Mexican hatch chile, and local pride around the Pueblo variety runs fierce. Every autumn, the smell of roasting chilies drifts through Denver neighborhoods as residents buy bags of fresh roasted peppers to freeze for the year ahead. The Denver version of green chili is the pork-dominant, thick-bodied, deeply roasted interpretation that has become the city's signature. It is hotter than you expect if you are not from here, smokier than other regional versions, and it will ruin you for lesser imitations. The Brewery Bar 2 on Bannock Street is still considered essential for anyone serious about understanding what Denver green chile actually means. 8 shredded wheat. Here is one that will surprise you because when most people think about shredded wheat, they picture a health-conscious grandmother in a kitchen somewhere in the American heartland, not a gold rush city at the base of the Rockies. But the truth is right there in the history books. In 1890, a man named Henry Perky invented a machine in his downtown Denver factory that could produce America's first shredded wheat, turning whole wheat grain into the distinctive pillow-shaped biscuits that have been appearing at breakfast tables ever since. Perky was a Denver lawyer turned inventor who developed the machine as a response to his own digestive troubles, believing that whole wheat prepared in a particular way was beneficial for digestion. The machine he invented in Denver was capable of producing the biscuits at commercial scale, and the product he created went on to become one of the foundational items of the American breakfast cereal industry. Today, shredded wheat appears in Wheaties and a range of other cereals. The biscuits themselves are still sold under the original name, and the machine that made them possible was first operated in a factory in downtown Denver, Colorado in 1890, while the gold rush was still fresh in the city's memory. 7. The Fool's Gold Sandwich. This one requires a brief disclaimer. The Fool's Gold Loaf is not food for the faint of heart, the calorie-conscious, or anyone with a functioning cardiologist. It is, however, one of the most gloriously excessive food inventions in American history. It was created in Denver, and it once attracted the most famous person on earth to fly across the country specifically to eat it. That person was Elvis Presley. The Fool's Gold Loaf was the creation of the Colorado Mine Company restaurant in Denver, which opened in 1969 and became one of the hottest dining destinations in the city through the 1970s. The sandwich requires an entire loaf of sourdough bread, sliced lengthwise and each half hollowed out, then filled with an entire jar of peanut butter, an entire jar of blueberry jam, and a full pound of bacon. The two halves are closed into a sandwich weighing approximately 3 pounds and containing somewhere near 8,000 calories. On the night of February 1st, 1976, Elvis flew himself and 22 friends from Graceland, Tennessee to Denver, specifically to eat it. The group spent 3 hours at the Colorado Mine Company, eating Fool's Gold loaves and drinking champagne, then flew home. They did not stay overnight. The round trip existed solely for the sandwich. Elvis was also known to have the restaurant fly the loaves to him at Graceland when he was not up for making the journey himself. The Colorado Mine Company closed long ago, but the story of the night Elvis crossed 3 time zones for a sandwich lives on, as one of Denver's most extraordinary culinary legends. 6. Rocky Mountain Oysters. We need to talk about Rocky Mountain oysters, because if you have never encountered them, you deserve to know what you are getting into before you order. And if you have encountered them, you will understand exactly why they belong on this list as one of the most distinctive food inventions associated with Denver and Colorado. Rocky Mountain oysters are not oysters. They contain no shellfish. They have nothing to do with the ocean. They are the testicles of bulls, bison, or calves stripped of their outer membrane, sliced, dredged in seasoned flour or cornmeal, and deep fried until golden. They are served with cocktail sauce or horseradish, sometimes both, and they are eaten as an appetizer or a bar snack with a complete lack of embarrassment by Coloradans who have grown up with them, and an extremely variable level of enthusiasm by visitors who encounter them for the first time. The dish emerged from Colorado's ranching culture during the expansion era of the late 19th century, rooted in the practical logic that nothing from an animal should be wasted. Ranchers castrating young bulls needed to do something with the byproduct, and the answer, in the spirit of frontier ingenuity, was to eat them. The deep-fried preparation that became standard is considered the ideal vehicle for the first-time taster, since the seasoned crust and the familiar cooking method make the experience considerably more approachable than the alternative of simply knowing what you are eating. The Buckhorn Exchange restaurant in Denver, which holds Colorado Liquor License Number 1 and has been in operation since 1893, serves 300 to 500 pounds of Rocky Mountain oysters per week, which tells you something definitive about their ongoing popularity among locals and their enduring status as a ritual rite of passage for visiting food adventurers. 5. The Denver Omelet. You have seen the Denver omelet on breakfast menus everywhere. The diner in Ohio has it. The truck stop in Georgia has it. The hotel breakfast buffet in whatever city you flew into last week has it. Ham, diced onion, green bell pepper, and cheese folded into eggs, sometimes with mushrooms, always carrying the city's name on the menu whether the cook has ever been within 500 miles of Colorado. The Denver omelet is one of those dishes so thoroughly woven into American breakfast culture that its origins have become invisible through familiarity. The origins are genuinely interesting and genuinely disputed, which is a combination that makes for the best food history. The most widely accepted account connects the Denver omelet directly to the railroad era of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when Chinese railroad workers were cooking on the lines that connected the West. These workers were familiar with egg foo young, the Americanized Chinese egg dish that combines eggs with vegetables and protein, cooked together into a single coherent thing. The story goes that this preparation traveled from the railroad camps into Denver's early restaurant culture, where ham and green pepper became the standard additions, and the whole creation acquired the city's name. There's a competing origin story, equally charming and supported by an actual historical plaque in downtown Denver, which holds that a pioneering woman received a wagon shipment of eggs that had gone questionable during the journey and solved the problem by adding enough ham and peppers and cheese to disguise whatever the eggs might have been lacking in freshness. Soul food historian Adrian Miller, who has studied the omelet's origins carefully, concluded that while it is unclear whether the dish actually started in Denver, Denver certainly took on its name and made it famous. There is a lesson in that. Sometimes a city earns a food's name not by inventing it, but by caring about it most. 4. The Mexican hamburger. Denver's gift to the hamburger does not stop at the cheeseburger. The Mile High City also invented an entirely separate category of burger that does not get nearly enough national attention, and that is the Mexican hamburger, which is exactly what it sounds like, and exactly as delicious as that sounds. A beef hamburger patty surrounded by refried beans and smothered in Colorado pork green chile, the whole construction wrapped in a fresh flour tortilla. It is a collision of American fast food and New Mexican cooking that could only have happened in Denver, and it is one of those dishes that makes perfect sense the moment you taste it and makes you wonder why the rest of the country has not caught on. The invention is credited to Joe's Buffet, a restaurant on the west side of Santa Fe Drive in Denver in the 1960s, where a waitress reportedly had the idea of putting a hamburger patty inside a burrito already on the menu. The resulting creation, smothered in green chili in true Denver fashion, became a local institution. Environmental historian William Philpott of the University of Colorado Denver has described seeing Mexican hamburgers on Denver menus as a kid and thinking they were unusual, only to realize later they were a genuinely Denver creation, born from the mix of Mexican, New Mexican, and American food cultures that define the west side of the city. The original Chubby's on West 38th Avenue still serves a version considered the essential reference point for the dish. 3. The root beer float. The root beer float is one of the great contested origin stories in American food history, and Colorado holds the claim that has been officially celebrated, popularly accepted, and periodically challenged by historians who want very much to ruin a perfectly good story. The facts, such as they are, run as follows. In 1893, in the Colorado mountain mining town of Cripple Creek, a man named Frank J. Wisner was associated with the Cripple Creek Brewing Company. One August night, looking out toward Cow Mountain, he was reportedly struck by the resemblance between the snow-capped peak in the moonlight and a scoop of vanilla ice cream. He went back to his establishment, scooped ice cream into a glass of Myers Avenue red root beer, served the result to the children of the town the next day, and called it the Black Cow Mountain. The local kids shortened it to Black Cow. The drink was, by all accounts, an immediate sensation. The drink spread from Cripple Creek to Denver and beyond, gaining traction in the city's soda fountains at a moment when pharmacists and soda water vendors were building the carbonated beverage culture that would define American refreshment for the next century. History Colorado's curator Rachel Storm has done thorough archival research and found that some details of the Wisner story are difficult to confirm conclusively from primary documents. It is worth noting that a Philadelphia man named Robert Greene has also been credited with an earlier version of the ice cream float concept at the 1876 Centennial Exposition. What is not in dispute is that Colorado's version of the story has been celebrated at the state level, endorsed by Governor Jared Polis on social media, and enshrined in the popular imagination as the origin point of one of America's most beloved summer treats. The Black Cow became the root beer float. The root beer float became an American institution, and Colorado is where the mountain reminded one man what ice cream looked like floating in soda. 2. Chipotle. In 1993, a young man from Boulder named Steve Ells opened a single restaurant on East Evans Avenue in Denver. He had attended the Culinary Institute of America and had a vision for a fast casual Mexican restaurant serving high-quality ingredients assembled in front of the customer, fast enough to be convenient, but good enough to be worth eating. Burritos, tacos, bowls. The restaurant was called Chipotle Mexican Grill, after the smoked jalapeno central to its flavor. By 1998, Ells had expanded to 16 Denver area locations through word of mouth alone. That year, McDonald's became a major investor, and the company began its national expansion. By the time McDonald's divested from Chipotle in 2006, the chain had grown to over 500 locations. Today, Chipotle operates thousands of restaurants across multiple continents, with revenues in the billions of dollars. It also pioneered what the industry calls fast casual dining, the category between fast food and full-service restaurants, where the food is genuinely good and you still do not have to tip. All of that began with one burrito restaurant on East Evans Avenue in Denver in 1993. The next time you stand in that line watching someone assemble a bowl, remember that line started in Denver. 1. The cheeseburger, and here we are. Number 1. The most quintessentially American food item in the history of the country, the thing that defines a category of eating that billions of people on every inhabited continent now participate in. The subject of more fast food advertising than any other single dish. The meal that defines the American cookout, the lunch that built an entire industry, the sandwich that launched 1,000 drive-thrus. The cheeseburger, and Denver says it started right here. On March 5th, 1935, a man named Louis E. Ballast, owner of the Humpty Dumpty Barrel Drive-In at 2776 North Spear Boulevard in Denver, Colorado, registered the trademark for the word cheeseburger. His restaurant was Colorado's first drive-in, a barrel-shaped building where customers could pull up in their cars and have food brought directly to them. A concept that was genuinely new and genuinely exciting in 1935. The story goes that Ballast experimented with various toppings for his hamburger patties before settling on cheese, having tried, among other things, peanut butter and chocolate, which did not catch on with customers for reasons that require no further explanation. The cheese version was different. The cheese version was perfect. The cheeseburger trademark was registered on March 5, 1935, and a granite monument still stands today at the corner of Spear Boulevard and Alcott Street, erected in 1987, declaring unambiguously that this is where the cheeseburger was created. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, the cheeseburger story is contested. Kalen's restaurant in Louisville, Kentucky, claims to have been serving cheeseburgers since 1934, a year before Ballast's trademark. The Right Spot in Pasadena, California, claims that a teenage cook named Lionel Sternberger invented the cheeseburger there in 1924, more than a decade earlier. And Ballast, according to some accounts, never actually completed the trademark process in the end. The arguments between Denver, Louisville, and Pasadena enthusiasts have continued for decades and show no signs of resolution. But here's what Denver has that neither Louisville nor Pasadena has: a granite monument, placed by a dairy association in a city that genuinely believes the story and has chosen to celebrate it in stone. The Humpty Dumpty Barrel Drive-In is long gone, replaced by a bank. But the marker remains at the corner where the barrel-shaped building once stood, and it says clearly what every Denverite who passes it believes. On this site in 1935, the cheeseburger was created. You can go see it right now. It is on Spear Boulevard. It is made of granite. Denver is not backing down, and that is the thread connecting all 10 of these Denver inventions. From a Brooklyn-born restaurateur building a honey crust pizza in a gold rush town, to a Boulder graduate opening a single burrito restaurant that became a global empire. From a frontier cook solving the problem of questionable eggs, to a lawyer with digestive troubles inventing a machine that changed breakfast. From miners finding a use for a ranching byproduct, to a man looking at a mountain in moonlight and seeing ice cream floating in soda. Denver's food history is the history of American ingenuity under frontier conditions, of immigrants and miners and ranchers and entrepreneurs making something from whatever was at hand and sending it into a world that was ready. The mile-high city at the edge of the Rockies has been feeding America for longer than most Americans know. Go find the granite cheeseburger monument on Spear Boulevard. Order a green chili smothered burrito at a Denver diner and watch them pour that sauce without asking if you want it that way. Because of course you want it that way. Find Bojo's and hold a mountain pie crust and feel how different it is from anything else. And think about how much of what you eat every week came from a city where a man once looked at snow on a mountain and saw dessert. If this opened your eyes to what Denver put on your plate, hit like, share this with someone who loves food history, and subscribe so you never miss another deep dive. Drop a comment telling us which Denver food you had no idea came from here. More stories coming. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay hungry, and keep rising.